But this presence, out of the entire cosmos that God created, 97% of other beings in the cosmos are benevolent. 97%, kind of like our percentages here. 3% are not so nice. 3% the world has been inundated with long ago, and we're still trying to get those crusties right off of us. 3% are not so nice. 97% are more loving, more aware, more conscious than we ever will be, and are trying to help us through this. Now, the other presence unfortunately got to the Illuminati and the elite. They still want, they're the ones that planted in greed and lust and the need for power and dominance. That wasn't part of the human condition. This is a nice little experiment in the cosmos. It was a beautiful little, how can I say, place that is like a terrarium experiment. You know, and as a kid you have a little terrarium and everybody puts a little plant and then watches it grows. This was Earth. So God Creator had this little sphere and everybody was invited except the 3% of the negatives to come partake and put something here. So the trees elsewhere have a whole society. Water. There are places and beings that are just gaseous bubbles that have intelligent societies. So we just happen to have human form here. But everything on the earth and man will have dominion over the earth. So we got to do that. So we are a soul that lives forever. It is finite. It keeps getting in these cute little bodies for Earth School 101 class and the experiences to continue to grow in our knowledge, our compassion for mankind and for one another. How can I say it? As we grow spiritually, improve our personalities and become more like God Creator. Okay? No, it's not an old man with a beard. Mankind invented 35,000 religions. That's the problem. God in the universe did not. So I want you to have a connection to the divine, but it never had to do with just anything on Saturday and Sunday. Never did. Okay? I like that they have given us an opportunity to love the divine, but past that there's a lot of problems with, because it's just to dominate. Religions were given to the earth consciousness at the time when man was new, and he didn't have his own conscience, right, wrong, so they were supposed to instill it. And then the divine said, okay, you can back off, they don't need you anymore, they've got their own right and wrong, their own conscience now. And they said, oh no, we like the power. So they started doing and wanting that power and domination. Well, that was planted by that 3% of the negative population of the cosmos that didn't like us because they weren't invited to the original terrarium party. Earth, Gaia, Terra, all these names that she's had, this planet, for her existence in over 4.5 billion years. Okay? So ultimately, this is your DNA, or a portion of your DNA. You were seeded as well. You're part of the earth, and part, your brothers and sisters, are through the cosmos. And that's why we're prized, because it's the first time this has happened. So we have that beautiful spiritual quality embedded with a human quality as well. And so they're thinking, oh my goodness, look at them, let them grow. Because others are just celestial quality, not this combination like this. So what is interesting about it is that the 97% of benevolent ones are trying to help soften. So instead of the earthquake being 12, it's 9. And then we have the heart people that are inspired for dominance and control. They're doing it and cranking it all the way down to, how can I say it, trying to crank the earthquakes up from 7 to 9. And here we are, the ET's trying to crank it. So we have that pull between the two. But they can't interfere. What is that Star Trek says? We cannot interfere. They can only aid or help. We have to go through the process. We're here because we asked and promised to do our jobs. We're supposed to be doing it, not cowering in fear somewhere. So what will you choose? Or like everybody else, 80% of the population is something called the normalcy bias that sociologists have found out. 80% of the population acts like nothing is happening and everything is normal. 80%. They found that they do nothing. They turn away when problems are happening and just go about their normal day because they can't handle it or they don't know what to do. So they just turn away. So are you going to be in, what society says because everybody else says it's not going to happen? Is that what you will do? I hope not. Because that's what they're really doing. And that's not a way to protect yourself through these changes. I'm sorry. It won't work. That kind of denial is because they don't want to see. Well, I'm showing you all just some of the things that are happening for the planet and the cosmos. Or out of fear, I don't know what to do, I don't want to hear anymore. And what the elite have done is made sure that the New Agers are just going to meditate and just stay there because they can be knocked out of the way. Because if they meditate anywhere on the surface, like they're not planning to, well, just meditate it to be wonderful. That's beautiful. But the Dalai Lama, which I love, and since I was 12 years old, I've been connected to the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is one of the most spiritually high men on the planet. But he can't even to this day go home. Can't sleep in his own bed. Can't go to his own palace. And that's been since 1959. Now, nobody meditates greater than the monasteries in Tibet. Don't you think they meditated? Why is he here? Because the Chinese were going to kill him to take back the land. So I'm sure that they had psychics as well, similar to our own and greater, obviously, that said, you need to leave in the middle of the night and get out of here, or he would have been killed. And he left, and he's been exiled and was given the home in Dharamsala, India, where he is. But people forget, Dalai Lama can't go home. And he has to know that even the monastery is still in Tibet. His nuns and priests and monks have been tortured for all these years since. They meditate. You understand? I want you to meditate. But I also want you to be aware of what the externals are dealing with. You can meditate, yes, you can get rid of a cloud. That's so wonderful. You can even concentrate and meditate on healing people. We all use it. We can meditate on rain, on crops growing, on plants being stronger, water being clear. Yes. But when a board is flying at your head at 300 miles per hour, I think you should move. You can meditate a force field if you're strong enough, but are you? Okay. So I would suggest no surface would be the advice for me. No surface for externals for living. Don't even put anything on the surface. And what I find is people, without getting all the clues, are selling their homes or buying somewhere else that they think is going to be safe on a mountain. It's still outside. So, out of fear, they're doing several things. They freeze, like deer in the headlights, and not do anything. Does that look like somebody you know? But what happens is most of them will. Or they're going to prepare. And that is born from you applying all this knowledge, your insight, your intuition that you're bringing forth, then you'll prepare. Now, that preparation is interesting. Because what I see is the people that are talking about it right now are teaching people the wrong way to prepare. Now, I notice the canned foods are great. And by the way, for one day of food, and since you're going to be there at least a year to 2, canned food would be the best way to go because it has a source of water. It's usually packed in water. Because water will be the new money. Because remember, it's radiated 350 trillion units through the galactic center. It also now has been poisoned by the volcanic ash going through. So you're going to have acid water, acid rain. So you're going to have to find a way to filter your water. You're going to make sure, how can I say it, since you're not sure that you can have your normal intake of water, because you can't live 72 hours without water. You can go a week without food. So you're going to have enough water for every person in your group or community. I will say not group any longer because that's leading to think that 25 people can survive. They're not. You're going to be overtaken by a group of 50 that goes and gets what you've saved and prepared for. So it's important when you're preparing like this, just for the food, think about it. You need 1,000, I think it's 1,068 cans for one person for a year. And it should be packed in water. And you need high foods that are rich in protein. During crisis or stress, peanut butter is good. It's in the jar. It's already there. But it helps to coat the nerve endings while you're going through stressful situations, which we would be in. Also, green foods. Green is one of the highest sources of protein. People forgot. And since you're going to have to grow everything anyway, you have this stash first set aside. So this is the kind of preparation you have to deal with. So what I notice is they're teaching people to buy the wheat and have the storage of beans. Well, doesn't it take, and rice, doesn't it take 2.5 times as much water to make that come alive? So why would you waste your water that you don't really have when you need to drink it to make the bean become soft enough to cook? So you have to think about these things when you're carefully, preparing. So I see like some of these, box foods and things like that, I would still go with the can because you don't know about the weevils, and you still need some sort of water or liquid to reconstitute it. Okay. Canned food is not living. It's the closest thing we have to living food. So there are systems. I'm going to go back to the food because I found a gentleman that I've been dealing with. He found a way to grow in a dome, a small dome. One dome can transplant the amount of food that is made in 600 acres in that one little dome. And he did it by a system of making sure it's encapsulated and safe. And it has LED lights. Those are the only lights you should have in your community. LED lighting. And it is turned on a timer, and it is for 7.5 hours in light. You turn it off for half an hour, then the timer turns on all light again, the plants or seeds, whatever medium you have it in, wherever you have the seed, whether it's hydroponic or whatever, emulsion, whatever you have that seed in. And it turns on for the sequence of 7.5 hours on, half hour off, 7.5 hours on. It tricks the seed into going through its photosynthesis and its growth. You have new lettuce in 18 days from one seed. That's unheard of. It's not a whole season, but we're going to need that kind of production, ongoing. For tomatoes, 38 days for full ripe tomatoes. So these are the things underground. You have a system for your community that will be able to grow, be it hydroponically, be it vertical, how can I say it, agriculture, doesn't matter. There are all kinds of systems out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and learn those qualities. Now you see why we're going to organic things, because your grandmother ate this food anyway. They didn't have all those pesticides and things on it, your great-grandparents. But when you think of your preparation, I want you to also include first aid stuff. But I want you to do those alternative methods, because you're not going to be able to go to the pharmacy and get prescriptions. So you should wean yourselves off now of medications by going through homeopathy and alternative methods if you can. Obviously, you're going to have to seek an expert in those fields to do so. I'm not recommending everybody just go off of them. Glasses, learn to use yoga for the eyes, because your prescription is not going to be renewed. Okay? Yoga for the eyes will get your eyesight back to 20/20. And you'll be able to teach your whole community how to keep their eyesight strong. And then the dollar store to get those other glasses and have a stash just in case. So these are things you have to think that are essential, because there will be no large help. I had the captain of the LA Fire Department on my radio show in LA. It gets to over 200,000 people worldwide per week in Los Angeles. I'm thankful I just did it as a web method to teach metaphysics and understand all these things about the world and how to incorporate it in our life. She was on my show, and she said, guess what happens? She said, you hear all these earthquakes happening. Just because it's not in your backyard now, don't think it's not going to happen. She said, guess what happens when you call us? She says, we ain't coming. I thought, she's saying on the air, oh my God, you're telling these people. But it's true. She said, we have a civil mandate. At that time, we go into that civic protocol, and you guys are fending for yourself. So I encourage people in the Los Angeles area and throughout 50 states, I believe it is, and 7 different countries, they have the Community Emergency Response Training Program, which is a 7.5-week program that is free. They also have a ham radio operator program to get certified, because your cell phones aren't going to be working. Your electricity and infrastructure won't be working. You're going to have to find a way so those people that did spinning class, they can spin again underneath, but it'll generate into your batteries that you'll store that power and energy. Okay? So if they could do and use power and energy in the pyramids, and they did, there's already proof of that, we can learn to do it here. We think we're smarter, right? So we have all those ways built in to generate energy, and then we won't waste energy so much. You don't want any of those curly-Q bulbs, that's mercury, and once they break, it spreads throughout, and it's a problem and cause illnesses and disease, which is why the elite have you having those mercury bulbs in your house, by the way. Incandescents are too strong a pull of power, so LED is the way to go. So you have things like your duct tape, that can be used everywhere. Saran wrap, who's going to remember this? You know, cleaners, the radios that work with wind-up power. But this is the key. When you prepare, we'll go back to the water. Remember what I talked about water? You have to storage. Now the Mormons in there, that was funny that they had Romney run, because the Mormons have prepared for 5 years of this kind of thing. They have, everyone has 5 years of food, just for emergency, and 2 years of water, and every Mormon household. They've been preparing for this their entire life. So yes, it's happening in your lifetime in just months. But what ends up happening is that water, is it enough? Can you work with your own water? You need at least 3 filters. One for personal, one to continue to water, to filter the water in case another one breaks down. There's systems of doing it by hand in a bottle. There are classes that will teach it all over the place, but the Berkey water system is the best system. The U.S. Army uses that, and it filters ditch water. It's not that expensive. Berkey, B-E-R-K-E-Y. They're units that are small, or $150, but you need enough for your community size. I want to go there for a second, because with the community, it must be no less than 100. You will not survive unless it's at least 100 people to pitch in to work on the lights, the batteries, the food, the production. You need somebody in there. So your family is not enough in your basement. That'll never work. And your community has to exist underground. That's the only way it'll work, through all that stuff happening on surface.